Adam Clayton Powell. We was talking about politicians being corrupt, politicians stealing. They don't do anything for their constituents, especially Congressional Black Caucus, the black ones, right? This Congressional Black Caucus is not the Congressional Black Caucus of yesteryears. They don't. None of them resemble the pizzazz like a Adam Clayton Powell. I don't care what people may say negative about Adam Clayton Powell. I don't care if he purchased an island or homes from, taxpayer dollars, because he gave back to his district. He has done a lot. Let me just read off a couple of things. 1 second. So, first black congressman from New York, elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1944, representing Harlem. Chairman of House Education and Labor Committee, chairman in 1960, and oversaw the passage of a record number of bills aimed at improving education, job training, and social welfare. He played a pivotal role in civil rights legislation. He was key in passing 25th Amendment, which outlawed the poll tax for federal elections, and successfully attached the Powell Amendment to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to cut off federal funds for segregated schools. He championed social programs. His committee passed numerous measures related to school lunches, student loans, minimum wage increases, and aid for elementary and secondary schools.
They're quite a lot. That's unlike these jackasses that are in there now.
Activism and community leadership. He led Don't Buy Where You Can't Work campaign. This campaign successfully protested discriminatory hiring practices in Harlem. He was a pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church. He used the church as a base for social and political activism, organizing protests against discrimination and raising political awareness among his congregation. First Black New York City Council member, he was elected to the city council in 1941, becoming the first African-American to serve in that body. I've watched documentaries of him, and just looking at him, the pictures and his body language, he had a lot of class. He was very attractive, right? He was gargarish. And, I think he had a little, not a tiff, but he really didn't care too much for Martin Luther King, however, because he was the big dog, Adam Clayton Powell. And then you have the civil rights movement coming in, and then you see Martin Luther King everywhere. But Adam Clayton Powell was a big figure, especially in Congress. So,
yeah.
And you were alive during that.
Yeah, met him.
You were young, but
met him.
Oh, you have? When?
Yeah, he's a frat brother of mine, Alpha. I had pledged. I was dean of pledges, and he came through and conference, and we talked. A very impressive individual. Years later, I had the honor of speaking at Ebenezer Baptist Church, and I led a workshop there. Also had an interesting thing. We had as our guest down there that I invited from a conference we had just had, Professor Roscoe Brown, late Captain Roscoe Brown of the U.S. Army Air Force, late Captain Roscoe Brown of the 332nd Wing, the Tuskegee Airmen, who's now, after rationalization of the Luftwaffe records using computers, listed as most probably the third high-scoring U.S. Fighter pilot in Europe in World War II. So he was a slight guy who in his 80s ran in the New York Marathon, was very humorous, and I introduced to a group of folk who thought they were OGs down there, and I said, there's somebody in the house who's responsible for killing X number of people. And I went down the list, see if you can pick him. They were surprised, and finally somebody said, wait a minute, this dude is a fighter pilot or something? I said, yeah. And they were astonished when slight, smiling, impeccably dressed Professor Emeritus at New York University, Roscoe Brown, was the one that stood up that I was talking about. So, I mean, yeah, it was a very fascinating thing. That was about 20 years ago, I'd imagine.
Well, that you didn't meet Adam Clayton.
No, I'm saying when I spoke there, I met Adam Clayton Powell way back, I think it was 1966, 1967.
How old were you?
19 going on 20.
Really? And see, okay, I want you to speak to the Black politicians, even though it wasn't many back then,
You
but
know, my question, my
compared to now.
impression is I helped out uh, a number of Black politicians when they were running for mayor back when. Tom Bradley, he was the cop on the beat where I grew up in Los Angeles. I met some of the other people, Chicago Mayor Harold Washington. I was a grown man when I met them, other people like that. And excuse me, ladies, no insult to you, but most of these Black politicians now are nothing but pussies. They're sissified little excuses for wrecks that go hide behind your skirts. So I have very little respect for them, and they offend my manhood, really. They are not doing what men ought to do, and they're also doing something that I think is very bad. It's not that we haven't had political crooks, black and white, brown, red, yellow. But as one old guy told me when I was campaigning for somebody years ago, I believe it was attorney, then judge, previous to that judge, then attorney judge, and then a judge again, Otis Higgs. And this old brother out there said, Lawyer Brown said, I've been around here a long time. Said something wrong with these folk running, except this gentleman that you supporting here. He said, when I used to get approached about voting, I got a piece of cold watermelon that was juicy and sweet, a shot of decent whiskey, and a shiny new quarter. Said these some bitches is running now ain't giving you shit for your vote. Well, you damn sure ain't getting good representation. But I like this Otis Higgs. He good man. I think I'll vote for him.
Well, Adam Clayton Powell, I remember, I will go online and pull up some of his speeches, and one of his favorite speeches that actually went viral because people clip it when he says, Black is beautiful, and he's like, Black is beautiful, baby. It was just the way his.
Well, he could see he's not like these mush-mouthed idiots they have right now that have to just preach. He was a preacher, so preachers can talk, they can rap, and that's where the term came in, was somebody who could get up and talk, not just do what you call rap. Now, rapping was just talking. And
but for me,
yeah, but I'm saying Adam Clayton Powell could rap. Rap Brown could rap.
But let me just say this: as a woman,
Carmichael could rap.
Right, but let me say this about Adam Clayton Powell, because as a woman listening to him, I'm not saying he could rap, but for me, it's as if a man who is trying to not to seduce some women, but trying to,
Oh, he was good at that, I mean.
But in a professional way. That's how and so he was very persuasive in that masculine, sexy kind of way, but he also delivered. So he
could talk.
Right.
He was pastor of one of the biggest Black churches in America. And he could keep his audience entertained, deliver the message, and not be too sanctimonious about the whole thing. So he brought that to bear when it came time to do his politicking, and he could deliver a speech, make his point, and get everybody persuaded that his point was valid and worth supporting. So Adam Clayton Powell was a hero to Black folk in America. And unfortunately, we've let this glorification of dysfunction over the last few decades, well, 50 years, result in diminishing people. Adam Clayton Powell is one. Another person, a young man who wasn't out there that long, but certainly was very profound in his impact. That's H. Rap Brown. And a few other people we have just basically forgotten about, but whom we should not forget. So he's one of those. And somebody who was like him, somebody who was said to be much like him, was the great Frederick Douglass.
Now that you said that, honestly, that's kind of shameful because we should have more current names to throw out there, and we don't.
13th, 14th, 15th Amendments you owe in large part to Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass initiated and helped set up the 54th Massachusetts colored volunteers, which in their charge on the fort down in North Carolina carried off one of the most heroic acts in the history of the U.S. Army, and his two sons were in that outfit. He campaigned all through Europe, and his dynamic speaking was enough to persuade many of the European nations to not help the Confederacy out during the Civil War. He was a candid commentator to Abraham Lincoln and others of the Republican Party who fought the Civil War. And he had a few gunfights escaping from slavery, so he was a real live badass. And he had the ear of a lot of people, black, white, brown, red, yellow, in the United States. And people have forgotten him. My grandfather was a big, big fan of his. And a lot of other people of my grandfather's generation loved that man. So Adam Clayton Powell modeled himself to a great extent on Frederick Douglass. And it's interesting, a lot of the people that are now renowned as black leaders said Frederick Douglass was the greatest. And Frederick Douglass had a little problem with somebody coming up we know is Booker T. Washington. He didn't exactly like him. He was elderly, but he didn't exactly take to him.
Wait a minute. So are you Frederick Douglass was around when Booker T. Washington was? Oh, yeah, he was.
Yeah, Booker T. Washington.
As when Booker T. Washington became an adult, Frederick Douglass was still alive, or are you talking about W.E. Du Bois?
No, I'm talking about Booker T. Washington and W.B. Du Bois were contemporaries, but Du Bois was younger, and Du Bois couldn't stand Booker T. Washington. And if you want to get the idea of what,
but you said Frederick Douglass and Booker T.
Yeah, I'm just saying Booker T. was not liked by Du Bois, and Booker T. was coming along as a very young man before Frederick Douglass checked out. If you want to understand Booker T. Washington, take a look at Al Sharpton and just imagine 50 years from now that they made Al Sharpton great, and you'd get the idea what Booker T. Washington was about. And 120 years ago, think about what it took to get the Southern white folk to name high schools after you. Booker T. Washington High School, Booker T. Washington Elementary, Booker T. Washington Finishing School as an ideal to Negroes to what to do. Think of the racist Teddy Roosevelt, who had Booker T. Washington as his special guest in the White House many times, where most of the former Johnny Reb governors in the former 11 states of the Confederacy feted Booker T. Washington as the ideal Negro to keep the rest of the Negroes in hand. Pick up the pail, pick up the mop, be good, and maybe white folk will be generous and grateful, and they will give your grandchildren a break. Frederick Douglass didn't go for that.
Right.
Neither did, well, that was after Frederick Douglass, but this was after Booker T got where he was going. But
Well, let's swing
W.E.B.
back. Let's swing back to Adam Clayton Powell because.
But Adam Clayton Powell was in line with not Booker T. We was in line with W.E.B. Du Bois and Frederick Douglass.
Yes. Well, let me because I want to do a separate segment on Frederick Douglass, but I want to real quick. I want to swing back to Adam Clayton Powell. Two things I want to bring up here. He had a committee. His committee was essential to the passage of the New Frontier and Great Society programs under President Kennedy and Johnson. Do you think that Adam Clayton Powell was too much of a socialist or a capitalist? Do you think that he helped pass along too many social programs that teetered on kind of like welfare programs, or no?
No, not the way they were done then.
Okay.
It was timely. What happened is there's a time for everything. Sometimes somebody comes up with something too early, sometimes too late. Sometimes it's wrong time, wrong place, both together. So what happened is what was very apropos for Adam Clayton Powell's time was not apropos for somebody trying to resurrect a castrated version of it 30 years after the fact in 1980, 1990. You see, so you take something that was a great thing and you bastardize it and pimp it into becoming a hustle. And that's what you have the black politicians doing now. They're just pimps or simps.
That too. So one more thing. Would you consider Adam Clayton Powell to be a politician or a statesman?
Both.
Can you be both?
Yes, you can.
Well, you know what? Now that you say that, it's interesting. He was both, and he knew he had to play both because he knew he had to be one way when he was in Congress because the majority white men, and he knew he had to be another way when he was amongst his people. I was watching one of his documentaries, and so when he would come down to Harlem, and I think this is before he even went to Congress, this is when he was young because he was going to school, I think somewhere in New England. But he was part of the church and part of the black people getting involved, what's going on in the black community. He loved being black. And then when it was time for him to go back up to New England, he was like, okay, I see y'all later. I got to go back to being white because he was so fair skinned. He would somewhat pass, which is why he was accepted and really respected, going to these all white prestigious schools. But he would have to switch roles, and he could do that. But he never forgot where he came from and what he had to do for his districts, his constituents, and for Black America, and for America as a whole, because the programs that he helped pass benefit all Americans. But it just dawned on me when you say that he was a politician and he was a statesman, and that's exactly how he operated in his career, in Congress. So, and I think you have to, if you really want to do good for the people, you have to be able to do both. But today,
it's like you have a good relationship with a woman. That doesn't mean you can't be a good lover too, where you can be seductive and you can be astute in the guidance that you provide.
That makes sense. That was a good analogy.
See, the public is like the woman. You can seduce her and be a good lover, and you can also be a good provider and provide guidance. You don't have to be just one and not the other.
I want to correct myself. Go ahead.
And see, the other thing too often right now, the criteria is the person's black, therefore vote for them. Doesn't make any difference if they're qualified or not. They just happen to have a PR department. But what Adam Clayton Powell was about was he was the man. who just happened to be black.
I want to correct myself. Well, I want to be more accurate. He did go to Yale, so that's
Yeah, I mean, he went to it. See, they didn't have affirmative action.
right.
He got through the front door in a major university, which is a lot more to be said than most of the Negro leadership now. And I use Negro as a substitute for that other N word that I declined to use. I'm not doing it favorably. The Negroes that are in politics right now, they got through, they didn't go to Harvard, they didn't go to Yale, they didn't go to Princeton, they didn't go to Stanford, they didn't go to Berkeley, they didn't go to UCLA, they didn't go to these major universities. They didn't go to Notre Dame. They went where they went, and they had affirmative action, and everybody's been, DEI to get them where they are. And why should we vote for you? Well, I'm the black candidate. Well, yeah, but what's that going to do about my bank account, about the living conditions I have, about the interest rates I pay on the mortgage, or on the new car, or the gain I get on the investments, or what's going to happen to my grandchildren? What has that got to do with shit? Look at processed head showing processed mind, Jasmine Crockett,
Al Sharpton,
David Crockett, coonskin head, showing a coonskin mind, just like St. Malcolm said. Look at Al Sharpton, Chicken George, and look at Cory Booker, and look at Booty Boy down there in Fulton County running the jail system, the butt boy, and look at Fannie down there, and look at Tish, and look at all these scoundrels that they've got masquerading as competence, and the only thing they've got to offer is a suntan.
And I think that's so disrespectful for the people that came before them, that actually made it possible for them to be in the positions that they're in. But you didn't learn anything from them. You didn't learn anything from their sacrifice. And you're absolutely right. There was no affirmative action, but you had a lot of black people, a good percentage of black people going to these prestigious white institutions during a time to where you did not have none of the legal protections that we do now. And also, Adam Clayton Powell, if he was alive today in Congress, like, he probably would be a Republican. And if he wasn't a Republican, he would definitely be pro-Trump. And he would be that is the perfect type of politician that we need for America and for Black America. And I also want to highlight that he pushed for vocational training. And why is that important? Because look at today, a lot of young people are not trained in any type of vocational skills. Yes, it's great.
Trained in shit.
They're not trained in anything.
Somebody's supposed to take care of them, whether it's their mama, friend, girl, or man, it's all about pimping, man. What kind of hoes you got taking care of you? Or it's the U.S. government. And see,
and they're not going to be lawyers or doctors at high levels like they used to. So, but then you get mad when HB1s and immigrants want to come here, and they do take advantage of those said programs that our Black forefathers have sacrificed, fought for, and died for to have.
I got a good one for you. Remind me to bring this up and talk to you. Remember who we've discussed relative to not having any trial experience that used to be over a certain bar association? Well, there is interesting information that came to light. Somebody brought to my attention. It's a settlement where the bar association paid out good money because somebody was involved in a rape situation that got settled.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Oh, I will tell you, named in the complaint and settled out of the whole thing.
Are we going to talk about this on the show?
We can. Somebody's sending me the whole.
Do you want me to leave this part in this recording?
We can, to tantalize.
All right, well, let's just follow up on Adam Clayton Powell.
Since you bring that up about.
Do you think, whether it's in my lifetime or my grandkids' lifetime, do you think we will ever see another type of Adam Clayton Powell?
Yeah, you will.
Yeah. Will he be black?
Might.
Black American. Foundational Black American. Honestly, I don't think he will be.
An
I think he's going to be.
Who happens to be black, because the bottom line is in about 10, 15 years, it won't make any difference because there will be no majority in this country. The way they've contrived it, it will probably be a large Hispanic minority. But since when you fill that block out that establishes that ethnic group, that's just language. It doesn't deal with any of the ordinary racial aspects, because when you get to a federal form, it'll say Hispanic, non-Hispanic. If you check non-Hispanic, you have to indicate whether you're Caucasian or white, black or African American, Native American, except for Pacific Islander, all of the rest of that stuff. And then if you indicate Hispanic, you skip all that. Now, there's a woman who used to make all of my suits and shirts, C.C. Myers. Her parents were Germans, Nazis, but she's classified as a Hispanic because she's from Argentina, and habla español muy bien. So you take this person of exclusive Germanic ancestry who happens to be born in Argentina, raised there, and she's classified by the U.S. Census as Hispanic. You know, it's kind of strange. Or you can take my stepmother, who is classified as Hispanic, and she's got slant eyes because she's almost 100% Chinese in extraction. She's Filipino. So
well, I think that there is going to be a Adam Clayton Powell reincarnation in Congress, but he ain't going to be black. He's most likely going to be Hispanic because they I don't.
You got to be in Congress.
Well, because I'm talking about Adam Clayton Powell. I'm talking about Congress.
Yeah, you got one right now if you want to get Congress. J.D. Vance.
He's not in Congress. He's the president of the Senate.
If you said limited to Congress, I said, why do we have to limit it to Congress? J.D. Vance reminds me much of Adam Clayton Powell.
Are you serious?
Yeah, how he presents himself. He's quick on his feet, like a stand-up comic. He's, I guess women would think he's good looking. He's presentable, and, you know, he's got his Hindu wife, so he gets the crossover thing, and he doesn't take any nonsense, and he speaks his mind, and he does it well. That was Adam Clayton Powell. They even
they don't look alike, so please don't.
They don't look alike.
but here's the thing. No, and I'm sorry. Adam Clayton Powell. No, I don't. I get what you're saying as far as J.D. Vance and Adam Clayton Powell, but Adam Clayton Powell, he had a lot of pizzazz. J.D. Vance is a little. He still have that.
I mean, it is
Appalachian look to him a little bit, but I don't know. And we have to do a separate show on J.D. Vance because that'd be a good segment, because I don't know J.D. Vance public policies history as compared to Adam Clayton Powell, because that's important, because I'm talking about the policies as well. So yeah, we could talk about the character and the way they present themselves. That's very important. But I'm not familiar with J.D. Vance policies. But that is something that I do want us to talk about next time.
If I can categorize what Adam Clayton Powell was about and J.D. Vance, it's called populism. And that's a type of politics. And populism has got to do with feeling the pulse of what other folk might call the proletariat. In other words, the ordinary person, the common man. You speak to the common man.
I see what you're saying, but I'm a little bit, and I could be persuaded. You can't you
In
can
other words, the
persuade me
common
a little
man
bit,
evolves. What
but
the
here's
common man was 60 years ago is 70 years ago, 80 years ago is not necessarily the same as what the common man is
right.
now.
But here's my little pushback with JD Vance because he was part of the CIA for a very long time. So, but let's save JD Vance for the next segment. But I want you to conclude with your thoughts on Adam Clayton Powell.
Well, Adam Clayton Powell was one of those rare people who stood head and shoulders above the crowd, and yet the crowd loved him. And where the crowd went, he went, and the crowd carried him on their shoulders. And we have a need for more people that the crowd wants to carry on their shoulders. And then there are those people who stand over there outside of the crowd looking on from a distance that don't understand that. We have somebody right now that's being carried on the shoulders of the ordinary people. That's Donald Trump. But some of the other people spend all of their time talking about, hey, why are you over there associating so closely with that boogeyman? And they want to attack the boogeyman, but they offer no alternatives to what the boogeyman is about. And that's what we have with an Adam Clayton Powell. He had a lot of people outside his particular constituency that felt very frightened. You had a constituency that was very wise, that with the Harlem Hellfighters, the Harlem Renaissance, and a lot of other things had contributed to the United States of America generically, not just in a black way. And that's what he represented. Now we have people that just deal with a small, warped constituency, and they get in, and there is nothing that they bring to the mix because they are coming along with the ever narrowing pathway that the weeds are overgrowing, that these greats hacked through the wilderness, that a lot of people passed down to get through the wilderness, but they didn't do anything to keep it open. It's closed, and it's getting to be a smaller and smaller trail. And in some places, you have to look very carefully to find its remnants. So that's the Al Sharptons, the Jasmine Crockett's, the Maxine Wastewaters. You can get on the white side. You can get Nancy Pelosi and this whole bunch. The Fannie Willises, the Tish Jameses, and all of this kind of clown show where they were hacking their way down the trail, but they don't have it. They're not pathfinders. They're not leaders. They're opportunistic pimps or pimpettes. And, that doesn't work for anybody except themselves.
Well, listen, all due respect to Adam Clayton Powell and his legacy and everything that he has done for Black America and for America as a whole. So,
well, one thing I heard him say in a speech, I was on the radio and I was listening live. I was in my car driving someplace and I was listening. He said, we need to stay the hell off of the plantation. We don't need to be down on the farm. This is the 20th century. And what I'd say in contrast to what we've got going right now is a whole lot of people are ideating about getting back on the farm, down on the plantation. And they tend to glorify in it. And that's what we've got is a bunch of handkerchief head Negro slaves who have jumped out of a H.G. Wells time machine in the beginning of the 21st century. Well, the second quarter of the 21st century, since that's what it'll be next year, the second quarter of the 21st century. 1/4 of the 21st century is gone. Just think about that. And we still have Negroes trying to go back on the farm down plantation way. It's pathetic.